Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, good afternoon. We have convened you for today's ordinary AGM to discuss the items on the agenda that we'll be reading to you. And very shortly. This year I will be chairing the AGM as Chairman and CEO, and beside me I have Maud Thurbet, who is our Chief Financial Officer, Claire Pigny, who is our Deputy CEO in charge of HR and CSR, and Antoine Vignal, who's our Company Secretary. Eric Mellet is our bailiff, and he will also be attending this meeting in person. Antoine Vignal will now explain the safety instructions for the salle P. Thank you, Benoit. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Safety is Saint-Gobain Group's top priority. This is why before beginning the meeting, I would like to explain the safety instructions that need to be followed. In the event of a problem, you will hear an evacuation message followed by the sounding of an alarm. If that is to happen, you should head calmly towards the closest exit. There will be blue arrows, as you can see behind me. You will go to the assembly point at the angle of Faubourg Saint-Honoré and Avenue Hoche. Please take your advice, take your instructions from the safety personnel. Thank you. I now propose to set up the bureau and to read the agenda for today. As Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, I have the great honor of chairing this AGM. Our tellers will be the two shareholders present and accepted with the largest number of votes. These two shareholders are respectively the Fund Housing, the Group Savings Schemes Plan, represented by Sibylle Denis-Offerman, and Amundi, represented by Madame Bernadette Scalzitti. With the approval of our tellers, I propose that we appoint Antoine Vignal as Secretary for today's Annual General Meeting, and to whom I now give the floor. The agenda and resolutions were sent to you with the notice of meeting. I propose not to read them out, but rather to move directly to our observations authorizing the AGM to conduct its business. Now, this meeting only has ordinary resolutions, so it's under the authority of an ordinary AGM. We require, therefore, a quorum of 20% of shares with voting rights. According to the indications that we already have on the attendance sheet, the votes by correspondence alone exceed by some distance this 20%. So we have our quorum already. I have here a folder in which all the documents required by law to conduct an AGM, in particular the documents convening the meeting, the reports of the Board of Directors, the Statutory Auditors' reports, the Sustainability Report, text of the resolutions, an example, or a copy of the Articles of Incorporation, the list of non-shareholder, registered shareholders. All these documents provided by law are at the disposal of the shareholders as required. Therefore, the Assembly is now duly constituted and can conduct its business. Dear shareholders, here are a few words on First of all, I will talk to you about the group's strategy and prospects. Then we will talk to you about our financial and non-financial performance with Maud Thurbet and Claire Pigny. Thirdly, Jean-François Chirelli will present his findings as a Senior Independent Director and Deputy Chair of the Board, but also his findings as Chairman of the Nominations and Compensation Committee. We then have Frédéric Gour speaking on behalf of the auditors. We then have a presentation of the resolutions by Antoine Vignal, followed by an exchange with you, the shareholders, in the form of a Q&A session. We will then vote on the resolutions and close the AGM. After the AGM, I propose that we convene together to share a drink. I now propose to begin by showing you a video on the highlights for Saint-Gobain in 2025.
At Saint-Gobain, time isn't just measured in years. It's measured in tangible progress, innovations, and projects that bring about lasting change in the way we build. In 2025, propelled by its 360th anniversary, the group accelerated its trajectory while remaining true to its vision, be the worldwide leader in light and sustainable construction. Against a mixed economic backdrop, Saint-Gobain delivered a very strong performance and confirms the robustness of its business model. 46.5 billion euros in sales, 7.2 billion euros in EBITDA. These results were achieved thanks to our decentralized country-based organization and excellent operational execution. Decisions taken by local teams close to the market, and momentum driven by all geographic regions, contributing in a balanced way to the group's performance. In 2025, Saint-Gobain actively managed its business portfolio. With 17 acquisitions, the group strengthened its position in its strategic markets, particularly in construction chemicals, integrating major players such as Cemix in Central America and Fosroc in Asia and the Middle East. At the same time, investments remained very strong. From the Czech Republic to India and South Africa, 24 new plants or production lines opened this year to support market growth and develop ever more sustainable solutions. Building better means, first and foremost, building more responsibly. Around the world, Saint-Gobain accelerated its environmental transformation by decarbonizing manufacturing processes, developing low-carbon solutions, and embracing the rising circular economy. Concrete actions that position the group as a leader in sustainable construction, a trend notably tracked and assessed by the International Sustainable Construction Observatory and its barometer. Building on these achievements, Saint-Gobain opened a new chapter. With Lead and Grow, its strategic plan for 2026 to 2030, the group is driving profitable growth around 3 key pillars. Enhance its portfolio of solutions, extend their rollout, especially in non-residential buildings and the infrastructure market. Continue to expand in high-growth geographical areas, leveraging in particular construction chemicals as a key differentiator for sustainable construction. All over the world, these ambitions are being realized, projects are taking shape, sites are being transformed, and sustainable construction is becoming a reality. Above all, these achievements are driven by the people who make Saint-Gobain what it is every day, dedicated teams who are proud to contribute to making the world a better home.
Mesdames et messieurs les actionnaires, comme vous l'avez vu,
ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, as you've just seen in this video about our highlights, Saint-Gobain once again in 2025 has shown the relevance of its strategy as worldwide leader of sustainable construction. In a few words, in a nutshell, Saint-Gobain is a highly efficient group which creates values for the stakeholders, an innovative group which has reinvented itself for the past 360 years, and a worldwide leader which is committed and for which sustainability is at the heart of its strategy and business model. Saint-Gobain plays a key role as leader and opinion leader. For the third time, a barometer has shown that sustainable construction is very highly appreciated within 30 countries, which makes it possible for Saint-Gobain to be really in the vanguard of innovation topics, for instance, with its action paper, a summary of recommendations of sustainable construction, or during the Brazil COP in November 2025, or in last April's technical report, which was published with a major UK consultancy firm. The group is also official partner of the Global Award for Sustainable Architecture. Each year it gives an award to the 5 architects which put sustainability in the core of their project. Social and environmental responsibility is at the core of our strategy at Saint-Gobain. And from an environmental point of view, we have again invested more than 200 million euros in decarbonization in 2025, making it possible for the group to lower the CO2 emissions for the group, and those emissions are 35% below the level of 2017. From a social responsibility point of view, our human resource policies continue to be recognized worldwide, and our group has been certified top employer global for the 11th consecutive year, and all our employees and their family are protected by our social protection programs in all our countries. And this is shared by all the stakeholders, the teams. First of all, the employees hold 77.7% of our capital. 75% of the French employees have bought shares during the employee savings plan campaign in April 2026. And of course, our shareholders have received 1.5 billion euros in 2025 in dividends and share buybacks. And also, we work for the community. Saint-Gobain has paid 1.2 billion euros in income, in taxes, and in expenses. And of course, Saint-Gobain gives a lot of value to the value chain, the suppliers and clients everywhere in the world. In France, it represents almost 500,000 craftsmen and building companies that we support in many ways, logistic, advice, consultancy or credit. Now, we have a very efficient strategy in terms of results and value sharing with all the stakeholders. You will remember we have in 2021 initiated my term of office as CEO, and we had initiated our strategic plan in 2021, Grow and Impact 2021-2025. This plan has been completed in 2025 very successfully. From the financial point of view, all our objectives set in 2021 have been achieved with an internal organic growth average of 3% per year. And from a strategic point of view, the group profile has been enhanced with a rapid internationalization in Northern America, Asia, and emerging countries, and a worldwide leadership in construction chemicals. We have been determined in that because we have invested 14 billion euros in growth and acquisition, and 7 billion euros, dear shareholders, have been allocated to you from 21 to 25. Over the same period, our share price has increased by 127%, so 3 times more than the CAC 40. And we have rolled out our strategic plan Lead and Grow 2026-2030. Saint-Gobain would like to step up its profitable growth. We would like to target the mega trend upholding sustainable construction. We want to develop and enrich our offerings in solutions which can create value for our customers. We want to expand our solution-based approach that we have well developed on the residential market, and we would like to expand this approach towards non-residential building and infrastructure market. Of course, on the basis of our organization based on the country platforms. Which are the mega trends supporting sustainable construction? The Saint-Gobain Group brings all the necessary replies to the challenges of our period in each major region. Rapid urbanization and population growth, housing crisis, and aspiration to a quality habitat, energy renovation and adaptation of all the buildings to climate change, reversal of globalization, relocation and local infrastructure needs, and finally, the resources are becoming more and more scarce, which makes it necessary to make circular savings. In order to meet those mega trends, we deploy a whole range of unique solutions which have been built year after year on a country-wide basis. Saint-Gobain is the only player able to bring a complete range of solutions for the building: roofing, ceilings, facades, partitions, floorings, and foundations. These solutions meet all the building's requirements: energy performance, acoustic welfare, natural light, and visual comfort. We develop the solutions country by country in order to step up our growth. Let's take the example of India. Saint-Gobain was already had a footprint in this country 10 years ago with 2 ranges of products: external or exterior glazing and plasterboard. Now, we have progressively expanded our offering with organic growth and with acquisitions, and now we can supply a whole range of complete solutions for buildings and infrastructure, and we have a leader position. The result in India has been multiplied by 6. Our income has been multiplied by 6. The same approach has been rolled out methodically in all our main countries in order to step up our growth, whether it's in North America, in Latin America, or in Asia. Saint-Gobain is a precursor concerning the low carbon supply, and I would like to talk about low carbon plasterboard or insulating materials in fiberglass with recycled content, and also admixture for low carbon concrete. Of course, the Saint-Gobain solutions make it possible to increase resilience of the buildings in view of the extreme weather conditions. In the United States, for instance, we propose constructive systems, reinforced systems able to resist or to withstand the storms. The solutions, of course, bring a lot of benefits to our customers. On the left-hand side of the slide, you have the global renovation of a country with the Saint-Gobain solutions in order to improve the thermal comfort of the inhabitants, but increasing also the real estate value of the property. In France, there is 30% price spread difference per square meter between the energy efficient buildings and those which are not energy efficient. Another example is non-residential construction. Saint-Gobain solution makes it possible to reach the highest level of environmental performance and considerably improve the life quality of the people working in the offices, for instance. Those benefits for our clients also have positive results for Saint-Gobain. For each project, more sales in the various families of products, more innovative product promotion and prescribed products, so this results in increased margin and growth for your group. Saint-Gobain rolls out innovative solutions in some very demanding industrial markets. For instance, panoramic roofs, which can become opaque on request for cars, and also they bring visual comfort, safety, thermal performance, and acoustic comfort. Also ceramic technologies to decrease the carbon content of industrial processes, or high performance polymers for many critical applications in industry. Now, those are the solutions that we roll out to bring value to our clients. This approach that we have historically developed on the residential market makes it possible for us to expand or to increase our market shares in the non-residential and infrastructure market. Even though we have generated already 15 billion euros in sales, we can gain market shares, major market shares in those non-residential and infrastructure markets. You can see that on the slide. One of the strategy drivers is lead and grow. It means that we can take many opportunities in growth opportunities. In order to do that, we have to adapt our offering in order to meet the specific needs of each market segment. Let's take the example of hospitals, hygiene, comfort, quality, air quality, safety, security, resilience, climate resilience. In view of the increasing number of heat waves, all this is very important for doctors and patients. Saint-Gobain proposes a whole range of solutions, for instance, for floors and easy to clean ceilings, plasterboard, which can protect against X-rays. For instance, in the hospital of Nantes, we have 26 different solutions prescribed by specialized teams in the health sector.
Residential data centers, which have their own requirements. Saint-Gobain such as speed of construction, power efficiency, security, resilience, sustainability. Saint-Gobain has a whole range of technical solutions that notably include Chryso solutions. Chryso reduces the carbon footprint of concrete by 20%. In 2026, we are now embarked on 600 data center projects spanning 26 countries. At the same time, Saint-Gobain has continued to reinforce its position in infrastructure thanks to its leadership in the field of construction chemicals. Our platform in this field has a value of €6.5 billion spanning 76 countries. This meets to the critical requirements of infrastructure and buildings with tightness solutions, very often technical solutions, concrete admixtures, technical floors, rendering that insulate facades, and many, many other. We are continuing our growth in construction chemicals through acquisitions and by investing over €9 billion between now and 2030. Now, I've described our strategic outlook, which is very promising. Let me now tell you how our people are going to implement these strategies. As you know, the quality of execution is absolutely essential if a strategy is to be successful, particularly in the very uncertain world that we live in now, deglobalized uncertain world. To roll out the profitable growth of Lead and Grow, Saint-Gobain is using a multi-local organization model in the form of country platforms. This is in all our regions, and it's an essential asset. This organization by country makes the group more resilient, more robust, and enables it to react with great agility to the volatile macroeconomic context and a highly fragmented geopolitical situation. This organization is also particularly relevant in the construction markets, which are local markets by nature. It leaves us very close to our clients and are very close to our people in the field. Most of our managing directors and country directors are from the country that they manage. So they know their ecosystem, and they can promote a complete multi-product offering, a very broad offering that's well suited to their local markets, be it in terms of distribution channels or technical prescription. Now, to optimize performance, these country platforms obviously reap the benefits of the group's operational excellence. First of all, it's industrial excellence, with over 4,000 robots in our plants and shared know-how along all our production processes. This another operational lever is innovation through our 5 hubs in each of our large regions. Then there's commercial excellence with a very structured approach to our large accounts. Or, of course, digital. For instance, the whole series of digital services provided to our craftsmen who are clients of Point B in France. Now, the rollout is accelerating, but the rollout of artificial intelligence, which is gathering pace in the group, be it in R&D, in applications along our supply chains, in our plants, in our production processes, and of course in our support functions, not to mention the various services that we propose to our clients. We will continue to develop these country platforms with special emphasis on North America, Asia, and the emerging markets, where our markets are higher growth markets on average. For that purpose, we will continue with our very determined, resolute policy of opening new plants, new production lines. 2025 was a very active year in that respect, with 24 new production lines or plants opened in the world. We also intend to continue making acquisitions and proceeding with disposals, always aimed at reinforcing the group's strategic profile in terms of growth and profitability. On the one hand, there will be acquisitions that will create value, such as the 4 acquisitions made since the start of the year in construction chemicals, but also targeted disposals, such as our recent disposal of the distribution businesses in Brazil, Belgium. The active management of our scope is an essential part of our strategy if we are to optimize unrelentingly the growth potential and the profitability of Saint-Gobain. Our target is to evolve over 20% of the group's sales between now and 2030, be it in the form of acquisitions or disposals. Let me finish with Lead and Grow. The success of our new strategic plan is, of course, borne by our men and women. Our men and women to whom I'd like to pay tribute. I'd like to thank them warm-heartedly for their talent, for their extraordinary commitment, and for their outstanding performance. In 2025, 89% of our employees in the world declared they were proud to work for Saint-Gobain. That energy and this great commitment that we see day in, day out in our logistics centers, in our R&D centers, in our production plants, this commitment which brings us together around a common vision at Saint-Gobain, which we call aiming higher. Now, our new strategic plan, and this ambition I just described, I've just explained to you, mean that we can aim higher in terms of the financial objectives and environmental objectives. Financially, that's 1 to 2 points outperforming the underlying market by 1 to 2 percentage points. Sales are growing in the mid-single digits. EBITDA margin of between 15 and 18% by comparison with the average of 14.7% in recent years. And of course, the continued pursuit of our ambitious environmental objectives. By way of conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I am confident. I have confidence in the strength and relevance of our Lead and Grow strategic plan to take advantage of Saint-Gobain's global leadership in sustainable construction, in extracting value from our strength and wealth, particularly in residential, non-residential, and infrastructure, and of course to generate high added value for all of our stakeholders. I'd like to thank all our directors, all our members of the board for their very interesting discussions and for the continued support. Let me reassure you, ladies and gentlemen, that your group is very solid and that its profitable growth trajectory is on the right track. Let me reassure that as Chairman and CEO, I am committing myself to reap the benefits of all our potential with every single person in the group. I can thank you for your attention. I will give the floor to Maud Tuadé, Claire Pidini, who will talk to you about our financial performance in the first case, and extra financial performance in the case of Claire Pidini.
Merci, Benoît.
Thank you, Benoît. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, good afternoon. I am delighted to have this opportunity to tell you about your group's financial performance in 2025. In 2025, Saint-Gobain, as I told you, performed well in a contrasted environment. In local currency, the group progressed its sales by 2.1%. Its EBITDA grew by 3.4% and its operating income grew by 3.8%. The operating margin continued at a very good level in 2025 at 11.4%, despite the adverse effects of exchange rates and the market environment, thus reflecting the strength of our strategic positioning and the good operational performance of the group. The EBITDA margin was also stable at 15.5% and was on a par with the record level of margin we achieved in 2024. Recurring net income totaled 3.3 billion euro and the return on capital employed at 14% is a good reflection of the priority that we attach to the creation of value for our shareholders. Let me now give you the breakdown of performance by region, beginning with Europe, Middle East and Africa, where the group sales were virtually stable in local currency. After a first half year where we were down 2%, the business progressed in Europe in the second half year, rising by 1.1% in local currency. This was, for the first time since 2022, a return to sales growth driven by Southern Europe, particularly France, thanks to the improvement in new construction, and in Spain and Italy, where Saint-Gobain continues to gain market share. The operating margin remained virtually stable for the year at 8.5% after 8.6% in 2024. Moving on to the Americas. The Americas posted growth of 1.5% in local currency. In North America, sales were marked by the downturn in the new buildings and the absence of any major climatic events in the second half of the year. As you know, Saint-Gobain has a very good offering in terms of adaptation to climate change. Latin America saw its business rise by 13.5% in local currency, in particular with the integration of CIMIX, a very successful integration of CIMIX in early 2025, and the gain of market share in construction chemicals, particularly in Brazil. Overall, the operating income, that's not including foreign exchange, and the operating margin progressed well to a new record level of 17.2%, up from 16.8% in 2024, thanks to a very good first half. The second half was stable, supported by very good discipline in the management of prices and costs. Let's now move on to the Asia-Pacific region, where sales rose sharply by 16.9% in local currency. This was driven by the very successful integration of Fosroc in early 2025. This is in construction chemicals. The very good dynamics with double-digit growth of India. India now is the third biggest country in terms of contribution to the results of your group. Southeast Asia also posted very strong dynamics, particularly Vietnam, driven by infrastructure projects and the recent launch of the first zero-carbon production of exterior boards. Operating margin reached a record of 13.3%, up from 13% in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, a few words about your group's very strong financial profile. In 2025, free cash flow remained at 3.8 billion euro. That's up 29% by comparison with 2021, which you will remember was the first year of our Grow and Impact plan. That was 2021-2025. So the rate of conversion of free cash flow, that's free cash flow at EBITDA reached 58%. Thanks to a very, very good of our working capital requirements. The gearing or net debt over EBITDA was a ratio of 1.4. And of course, the rating agencies have once again confirmed the very good strength, very good solidity of our group. A few words now about the first quarter of 2026. Sales were down 2.3% in local currency. Comparable, that's less than anticipated, despite difficult weather conditions in January and February in North America and in Europe. Asia Pacific saw its growth accelerate by 9% in local currency. Europe is flat and the Americas are down. In the course of this first quarter, we continued to optimize and reinforce the group's profile with 3 acquisitions in construction chemicals and the starting of 11 new production lines or production plants, 10 of them in high-growth countries, just mentioned, but India, where we opened up a new ceilings line, or Malaysia, where we opened up a new plasterboard line. Finally, since the start of the year, we have continued to optimize the group's profile with notably the disposal of our distribution of ventilation and tiling in the Nordic countries. Also our final exit from the distribution of construction materials in Brazil. At the end of April, we confirmed the guidance for 2026, aiming at an EBITDA margin above 15%. The first half year was affected by the weather conditions, extreme weather conditions at the start of the half year in Europe and North America. What about the return to shareholders? Well, your board of directors has recommended that we pay out a dividend of €2.30 per share. That would be a 4.5% increase over last year and an average annual increase of 12% since 2021, which is the first year of Grow and Impact. Furthermore, at the start of 2025, the group bought back shares for a total of €402 million. We will continue that buyback policy with €2 billion earmarked to buy back shares between 2026 and 2030, as we explained at our Investor Day last October. Finally, concerning the stock market performance, you will see on this chart how well the Saint-Gobain share price has fared by comparison with the CAC 40 index. Since January 2021, the Saint-Gobain share has risen 109%, CAC 40 has risen 47%.
Pour résumer, mesdames et messieurs, chers actionnaires, vous voyez que Saint-Gobain,
in a word, ladies and gentlemen, Saint-Gobain has continued year in, year out to perform very well in a contrasted environment, thanks to its very good strategic position, but also thanks to the high quality of its operational execution. You can count on highly mobilized staff who are championing this ambition of profitable growth within the general framework of strict financial discipline. So I have every confidence in our group's ability to achieve yet another year of overachievement in 2026. I now give the floor to Claire Pidini to tell you about our extra financial or non-financial performance, if you prefer, which, as you know, is an integral part of the group's strategy.
Merci Maud. Mesdames, Messieurs les actionnaires, bonjour. Je vais effectivement vous présenter.
Good afternoon, dear shareholders. I would like to talk about the non-financial performance of our group, and particularly the climate strategy results. Our strategy and our leadership in CSR is based on two basis, maximizing our impact on our value chain in order to benefit our clients. Benoît Bazin has given a lot of examples of that, and we would also like to minimize our footprint, our carbon footprint, and I would like to dwell on that point. In order to do that, we are working in three directions. We want to contribute to decarbonized world. We want to improve the performance of our ecosystem by reducing our footprint, and we want to participate in a safer, fairer, and more inclusive world. As you can see, the strategy of our group is making progress and has good results, very successful. Our company has continued to decrease its carbon footprint in 2025. By comparing to 2017, we have reduced our direct CO2 direct emissions and the electric consumption that could generate in CO2, what we call scope 1 and 2, by 35%. Our electricity is decarbonized up to 70% at present. And this for all the regions, all the countries in India, plus plasterboard and ceiling tiles in Vizag operates at 100% with biomass in order to avoid the emission of 35,000 tons of CO2 per year. The biomass comes from waste. We don't want to compete with the agricultural uses. In Canada, we have inaugurated last year the first plasterboard plant, zero carbon plant in North America, avoiding thus 40,000 tons of CO2 per year, thanks to the electrification of our production. So we have reached in 2024 our target, which is to decrease by 33% our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, which have been set by 2030. So we have increased that ambition, and now we target, as you can see on the slide, a reduction by 2035 compared to 2017, a 40 to 45% reduction. That target is very ambitious because it takes into account the future growth of our group, such as Benoît Bazin has depicted. We work, of course, in order to decrease our impact beyond our direct emission, that is scope 3, in order to take into account our whole value chain for our clients and suppliers. Those targets, our actions, and our roadmap are in line with our net zero emission objective by 2050. Our whole organization is involved in the climate strategy, thanks to our governance with our committees within the board and within the group executive committee. We use an internal carbon price for our investment projects and R&D. We have incentives for compensation, short-term as well as long-term incentives. And we have committed teams everywhere in the world. Now, for instance, we have trained over the last 3 years more than 80% of our employees to the climate risk worldwide. I think that Saint-Gobain is the group which has trained the largest number of employees. We also want to reduce our footprint. And we want, first and foremost, to promote water preservation. You know that we've made a lot of progress over the past year. If we compare our results to 2017, water withdrawals have been reduced by 26%. We make a lot of effort in facilities located in very in regions where the water stress is very high. 70% of those facilities have no water discharge, industrial water discharge. That represents 94 facilities out of the 130 facilities concerned. And Saint-Gobain has invested, for instance, in Pont-à-Mousson in France, thanks to complex investments, making it possible to circulate water in a better way and with an enhanced follow-up of our circuit. And last year we have decreased withdrawals by 30%, and by 2030 we want to divide by 2 the number of water withdrawals compared to 2017. And we wish not to discharge water at all in those areas where water stress is very high. Those measures, year after year, are part and parcel of the continuous improvement plans of our plants. Now, we want to reduce our footprint, of course, and increase circularity. We have decreased by 27% the non-recycled waste within our plants versus 2017. 16% of the commodity consumption has been replaced in 2045 by alternative contents, recycled materials, or co-products. For instance, in Finland, a whole brand new scories processing plant makes it possible to replace 70% of cement in NAE mortars. Or in Austria, where our group has opened its first recycling plant for the gypsum in this country. Of course, we want to steer the course with our 2030 objective, that is to say 80% reduction in our non-recycled waste versus 2017. Now, we want to participate in a healthier, fairer and a more inclusive country. We want to promote health and security at work. We continue to improve our performance. We have decreased by 61% the occupational accident rate versus 2015. It's a good result, but we have still too many serious accidents. In order to decrease the number of accidents, we have a systematic follow-up of those accidents resulting in serious injuries in order to draw all the lessons possible. We have decided to roll out this year a new training session for security online, which will be compulsory for all the employees of the group, and of course additional to what already exists. It will be given to the permanent, to the employees working on a permanent basis in our facilities. We also want to continue with the dedicated programs for the subcontractors in Brazil, in Poland, for instance, where we use artificial intelligence to detect risks that could be related to security, and we want to automatically generate alarms and warning signals. On a wider scale, we want to continue to act for a more inclusive world. We want to work on our value chain, of course. For instance, in our sustainable construction schools in France, we train the craftsmen of the future. More than 1,000 apprentices have been trained to sustainable construction since 2022, and we intend to train 2,500 additional craftsmen by 2030. We want to develop programs giving access to a decent and sustainable housing for underprivileged population through a program called Build Change, or via the Saint-Gobain Foundation, supporting solidarity-based projects and professional integration programs within local communities. More than 500 projects have been rolled out in 44 countries that have been supported since the foundation has been set up in 2008. And we share our values with all our stakeholders. Our objective is to create a confidence-based framework, healthy and committed framework. Of course, we have an ethical code, and we have a due vigilance framework or policy with our employees and suppliers, and you can see that on the slide. Our teams are fully committed to those targets. Now, all this makes out of Saint-Gobain a recognized leader in social and environmental responsibility. For instance, we have very good ranking by the main non-financial agencies. We are amongst the 10 best companies, and also we have a strong recognition by third-party labels like Top Employer, which has awarded its certification on a worldwide basis for the 11th consecutive year. We also are part and parcel of the stock exchange indexes, recognizing the companies that are having outstanding results in the CSR area. Of course, our ambition is to reduce our CO2 emissions by 2030 and 2050, and it has been validated by the reference institute, the SBTI Institute. Company has an integrated approach concerning performance, financial performance and also non-financial performance. One doesn't exist without the other, and we can in that way propose our clients different sustainable solutions, which is a source of competitive edge for us, and our group is a recognized opinion leader in sustainable construction.
Merci Maud, merci Claire.
Thank you, Maud. Thank you, Claire. I will now give the floor to Jean-François Surly, who will tell you about his work as independent director and vice chair, and of course the activities of his compensation and nomination. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I must now report to you as senior independent director, I should say, of our group. You will remember that when the board proposed to combine the role of chairman of the board and was back at the AGM of 2024. It also referred to a balance of power within the board, and in particular, but not only, by increasing the importance of the role of the senior independent director, which has led to a change in the bylaws of our group. In that framework, the framework of our bylaws, which specify my duties, I first of all draw your attention to my role as passive, shall I say, between the chairman of the board and the directors on matters of governance and on how the board operates. The assessment of the board's performance is an annual event. The meeting with the main shareholders every year at what we call governance roadshows, which are very time-consuming, to talk with the shareholders about how the group is governed, how it all fleshes out, so to speak, what we talk about on the board, what our areas of focus are. So this is a very interesting exercise for our large investors. There's also the work on the agenda of the board, and of course last year Benoit and I worked together, and this is a very good illustration of all that. We also review the independence of our directors. So it's a useful task which requires good cooperation between the group's management, the chairman and the chief executive officer, but also the company secretary of the board, Antoine, of course, Maud, Claire, and all the members of Saint-Gobain's ExCo. Now, this cooperation from the word go has always gone very, very well, and the board's appraisal, which was carried out by an independent firm at the end of last year, confirms what I'm saying. Concerning the appraisal of the board, it is universally appreciated by the directors themselves, and each and everyone in their respective roles underscore the quality of the interaction within the board. I should also point out how well aligned everybody is strategically with the management's objectives. We've also been very careful inclusion of risk management in your company. The board operates in a very structured manner with an outstanding transparency, excellent on the part of management, which creates an environment of trust that contributes considerably to the quality of our discussions. Of course, there's always room for progress, and we're working on that, but I think I can say as of now that your board works with discipline, commitment, and confidence with the sole goal of making the company successful. I'm going to leave it at that for that part. Could we have a jingle, please, before moving on? There we are. That's all I want. Now I now have the honor of reporting as chair of the Nominations and Compensation Committee. This is on our work conducted in 2025, and my presentation will come in two parts. A first part, which will be a review of how the board performed in 2025, and the second part on the components of the compensation package of Chairman and CEO for 2025, what we call ex post say on pay, and in respect to 2026, which we call ex ante say on pay. Bearing in mind that you will be voting on both of those aspects, ex ante and ex post. Now there you have the key figures concerning the board. Brief reminder, first of all, the size of the board, the composition, the degree of diversity, the origins, the seniority. You have all that on the screen. What I wanted to say to you is very simple. As you can see, your board is a balanced board. It's a diversified board. It's also independent. And it's a board that is committed with an attendance rate of 100%. As for the competence, this is something that our main shareholders are very attuned to, particularly in terms of our diversity. As you can see, 5 out of 11 members, that's 45%, are non-French nationals. It was 36% before last year. And this increase in the number of non-nationals was due to the appointment of 2 new directors at the AGM of June last year, Maya Ari from Singapore and Hans Solstrom, who is Finnish. 2 regions, by the way, in which Saint-Gobain has very strong positions that it continues to develop, as someone told us earlier. But these are 2 remarkable additions to the board that we needed, and we're very, very pleased that they accepted to join us. Now, French law being French law, when we calculate these proportions, it does not count employee representatives on the board, which is probably a shame, but we have 3. Sibylle Gosselin, who represents the employee shareholders. You know just how important it is for us that our employees own a substantial amount of the share capital. So Lily Cortés and Philippe Thibaudet both represent the other employees. Now these 3 people make a significant contribution, a much appreciated contribution to the work of the board. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them for that. Look, overall, with this new board of directors, it took us 2 or 3 years to reconstitute it with the various departures, but I think we can now say that the skills and competencies are particularly well adapted to Saint-Gobain's business model. Now, to prepare our work, we have 3 committees, 3 expert committees. The first is the Audit and Risk Committee, which is chaired by Thierry de la Porte. We've been chair for the last 2 years, and he's now up for re-election. We also have the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee, which has been chaired since last year by Sophie Brochu, and thirdly, the Nominations and Compensation Committee that I have the great honor of chairing myself. Now, we have 1 renewal this year. Thankfully, only 1 committee president is up for renewal. That is Thierry de la Porte. I can tell you, as of now, that if today's AGM approves the resolution, we will reappoint him as chairman of the Risk and Audit Committee. Thierry, thanks to his great broad professional experience, makes a remarkable contribution to the work of your board, and indeed chairs the work of the Audit and Risk Committee very, very efficiently. So, excellent collaboration with our CFO and the whole financial department. That's the first part. The second part now is the compensation of your chairman and chief executive officer. This information is drawn up by the board, but is subject to submitted to you for your say on pay. The idea is that compensation and achievement of strategy should be aligned. By way of brief synopsis, nothing like a nice simple chart. This is the compensation of Benoit Bazin for 2025. 2 comments I'd like to make. The first is that this is a continuity of the past. No changes were made to the structure of the chairman and CEO's compensation, which is based on 3 components. Fixed compensation, that's the top line, variable compensation, which is capped, and a long-term incentive in the form of share-based performance, or performance-based shares, I should say. Second thing I'll say is that the overall compensation of our chairman and CEO is below the median of his colleagues in the CAC 40, or even of the CAC 40 of industrial companies. Concerning variable compensation, the chart is maybe a little denser than the previous chart, but let's take 3 things to take away. First of all, that there's a cap. The cap is 170% of the fixed component, so the variable compensation cannot exceed 170% of the fixed compensation. Secondly, there are quantitative and qualitative data. 70%, 75% quantitative, 25% qualitative. Of the quantitative, 60% are financial indicators. Have we achieved our financial goals or not? And 40% are extra-financial, in particular, corporate social responsibility, CSR, and environmental criteria. Concerning the financial quantifiable criteria, which represents 60% of his variable compensation, all the goals were achieved. We can only be pleased about that. A wonderful achievement of our previous program, which ended in 2025. Despite a global context that was anything but simple, so I think the board can say just how happy it is that we have achieved all our goals. I think that's a remarkable performance over the last 4 years. As for the qualitative criteria, here again, we felt that the board, in its wisdom, because it is a value judgment, that these goals have been achieved, particularly the management of stakeholders, the end of the rollout of Grow Broad Impact, the working of the board, the chairmanship of the board by Benoit Bazin. So here again, we were perfectly satisfied that all the objectives had been achieved. Maybe one point that I should point out to you, Benoit has mentioned it, Claire Pédini also spoke about it at some length. It's the objective regarding safety. At Saint-Gobain, as you will have understood, for an industrial company, safety is absolutely of the essence. Every time we start every board meeting with a quick update on safety. I think it's the way to proceed. The rate of accidents in the workplace, we talk about the TF2, that's the frequency rate. Not just our employees, but there are people who are subcontractors and temps who all work on our sites. Our TF2 is one of the lowest in the whole profession. We're at a rate of 143 last year. We were last year, which is a very good rate. So we're very pleased about that. Every year the board pushes for better performance, but of course management takes us on board very successfully to improve our TF2. Last year we achieved our goal. You saw that we've achieved our goal. Unfortunately, as Claire mentioned, the number of serious accidents has increased. Benoit decided that this particular criteria was not achieved, or he would not accept any additional compensation on the strength of this criteria, which I think emphasizes how much importance we attach to safety. So we are fully supportive of Benoit's decision, which explains that the chairman and CEO will not receive the full amount he could have received in view of his decision not to receive any compensation on the basis of safety. And this is a decision that I can only applaud. Moving on to long-term compensation, which is the third component, fixed, variable, and long-term. Saint-Gobain has a performance-based plan of action for, I think it's 2,500 top executives in the group, and Benoit Bazin is one of the beneficiaries of this long-term incentive plan. A plan that was decided at the end of the year, and the board wished to grant him the maximum amount, that's 75,000 performance-based shares, given the excellent operational performance of the group in a difficult environment. But this is what we will be asking you to approve when you vote on the ex-post Moving on to 2026. Again, the structure is exactly the same. It's the same slide that you saw earlier on. The figures aren't there because we haven't got the performance. We don't know what he will have achieved. We haven't changed the structure of compensation by comparison with 2025. Beginning with variable compensation of the financial objectives, and as you know, there's a new strategic plan. New strategic plan which will be for the period of 2026 to 2030. So we've adapted the financial criteria to align them with the management's objectives, particularly as explained in our Capital Markets Day last October. That's EBITDA in excess of 15%. Mood gave you the main components of those objectives. So we've adapted the compensation. It couldn't have been any other way. So the group has made commitments to certain objectives. We have made commitments to these objectives, and they will be aligned in the compensation package. Regarding CO2 emissions, no change, except that the important thing with CO2 is millions of tons that's our carbon footprint. But we want to do more, as Claire said, 30, 40, 45% reduction by comparison with 2017. By 30 or 2035. Now, that may seem a very ambitious objective. Indeed, it is, because as Claire said, we make acquisition. Very often when you acquire a company, the carbon footprint is actually higher than our own carbon footprint. And of course, the demand increases on our when you sell more, well, you generate more carbon, arithmetically. So it's quite an undertaking to actually abide by these objectives. We have decided to be very ambitious, but realistic all the same. It's important to keep improving without necessarily targeting figures that are impossible to achieve. So we will continue to organize ourselves in that way to arrive at 40-45%. As regards safety, which is the final point I wanted to mention, we felt that we should continue to be very demanding about the reduction of TF2, despite the fact we're at a very low level. We must now take on board serious accidents. The fewer there are, the more serious they are. So we now have a new indicator that Claire hinted at. The board wanted that the safety indicator include a new acronym, I apologize about this. It's what we call high consequence injuries. They're very serious cases. So the 5% of that compensation package next year will gauge whether we've abided by our safety goals, and within that particular target, have there been fewer high consequence incidents. Of the quantitative data, quantitative criteria, we will continue in the same way. We feel they're the right criteria. And of course, the first area that we focus our judgment on is the rollout of the Lead and Grow, our strategic plan announced last year. There are other components, but it's the same chart every year.
Il y aurait une cessation de fonction du directeur général, la retraite supplémentaire, là aussi pas de changement, tout ça est soumis à des conditions de performance et pour l'instant on espère que
pension funds and other consideration which are highly unlikely. I think we have many years ahead of us before we look at any of these criteria. One final point is the compensation policy for directors, for members of the board. Again, no changes by comparison to what you approved last year. The same envelope, 1.6 million for the board in its entirety. We have made one or two small minor adjustments in-house, particularly for the audit committee, but otherwise nothing very substantial. They're just small internal adjustments. As you know, we have some special conditions for our non-French directors who have to cross the Atlantic. Well, it takes more time and there's greater costs involved. So that's all built into the overall budget that you've already approved. That's what I wanted to say to you about the work of the Compensation and Nominations Committee. So, thank you.
Merci, Jean-François.
Thank you, Jean-François. Let me now call on Frédéric Gour to join us to report to us on behalf of the statutory auditors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to speak on behalf of the College of Statutory Auditors and give you my account of the reports that we have drawn up for you. Now, we've issued several reports as part of our assignment in respect of financial 2025. First of all, our report certifying the information as regards sustainability, but also our reports of the statutory accounts and indeed the consolidated accounts, as well as our report on the related party agreements. These reports can be found in the Universal Registration Document, which is available on the company's website and has been there since the 11th of March 2026. I propose to report in a synoptic way, beginning with our report on sustainability, which was issued on the 26th of February last. Our task consisted in doing the work necessary to form an opinion expressing limited assurance regarding compliance with the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, ESRS, of the process used by the group to arrive at these data, finally the compliance of the data itself for the ESRS data, and finally compliance with the demands in line with the green taxonomy. Concerning compliance of the process with the ESRS, we have not identified any errors, omissions, or major inconsistencies. We should point out that we paid particular attention to the updating of the analysis on double materiality. Concerning the compliance of information on sustainability with the ESRS, we haven't identified any errors, omissions, or inconsistency. Two areas gave rise to particular attention. First of all, the greenhouse gas emissions, and secondly, the transition plan for limitation for climate change. Concerning the compliance with the demands regarding green taxonomy, we have not identified any errors, omissions, or inconsistencies. Let me now move on to our report on the consolidated and statutory accounts issued last February 26th. These reports conclude that we have unreservedly certified the accounts which are consistent with the IFRS system as adopted by the European Union for consolidated accounts and the French GAAP in the case of the statutory accounts. We have formed our opinion on the work carried out or conducted by the auditors, which give us a reasonable assurance that the accounts and financial information are both sincere and in full compliance. Our works have been adapted to the particularities and characteristics of your group and include ongoing operations and the more non-recurring events of the financial period. We use the procedures and internal control systems in the group and focus on the entire group worldwide. Our conclusion was submitted to the Management and Audit and Risk Committee of your group. Our reports further comprise a description of the key points in each audit. These are areas with significant risk of anomaly that we think are of greater significance for 2025. These are the main issues that we discuss with management and the audit committee. For each of these items, in our reports we explain the reasons that we selected them, the type of risk identified, but also the response we received from the audit department. For the period ended December 31st, 2025, these key issues concern, in the case of the consolidated accounts, the appraisal of goodwill and tangible and intangible fixed assets, but also the appraisal of the provision for the asbestos lawsuit in the USA. In the case of the statutory accounts, this concerns equity investments and related receivables. We point out in our report on the statutory annual accounts that we have an observation concerning the first year of application of the ANC 2022-2026. This observation had no bearing on our opinion. We also point out in our reports that we have no observation concerning the specific verifications, particularly concerning the sincerity of information provided in the group's management report, but also the exactness and sincerity of information provided concerning the compensation paid to corporate officers. Moving on to the special report on related party agreements. We have pointed out in our report that we had reported to us an agreement between the company Saint-Gobain and Madame Yana Revedin concerning a partnership for the editions 2026, 27, 28, 29 of the Global Award for Sustainable Architecture. We were also notified that there's a continued agreement ongoing between company Saint-Gobain and Madame Yana Revedin concerning a partnership relating to the organization and production of the 2025 edition of the Global Award for Sustainable Architecture. This report can be found on page 285 of the Universal Registration Document and does not contain any particular comments or observations. That brings us to the end of our report on thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Merci.
Thank you, Frédéric Gourd. I give the floor to Antoine Vignal, our Secretary General, and he is going to present, in a nutshell, all the resolutions.
Mesdames et messieurs les actionnaires, ce sont 11 résolutions ordinaires qui sont soumises aujourd'hui à votre vote. La plupart ont été abordées au cours des précédentes présentations, de telle sorte que elles se passeront amplement de commentaires et que je serai bref, vraiment bref. Première à troisième résolution, il s'agit de l'approbation des comptes, de l'affectation du résultat et de la détermination du dividende. Je ne m'étendrai pas car Maud vous a présenté les résultats financiers 2025. Quatrième résolution, ce sont les conventions réglementées. Là encore, ces conventions, Frédéric Gourd vous l'a exposé, ont fait l'objet d'un rapport des commissaires aux comptes, comme il vient de vous le décrire. Cinquième résolution, c'est le renouvellement du mandat d'administrateur de Thierry Delaporte. Là aussi, j'en reste là, car je crois que ce sujet a été évoqué par le président du comité des nominations, des rémunérations, et je ne vois pas ce que je pourrais ajouter. Les sixième et septième résolutions consistent dans le CNP ex post, donc c'est la rémunération 2025, sujet évoqué par Jean-François Cirelli, avec, me semble-t-il, suffisamment de détails pour que je n'ai pas à commenter plus. Et d'ailleurs, il en est de même du CNP ex ante des huitième et neuvième résolutions. La dixième résolution, donc, c'est l'autorisation du conseil d'administration d'opérer sur les actions de la société. C'est la seule qui n'a pas été abordée dans les présentations précédentes. Il s'agit d'une résolution classique, vous la connaissez bien pour ceux qui assistent à nos assemblées, puisque chaque année, elle est soumise à votre vote. Elle permet à la société d'acquérir ses propres actions, comme elle s'y est engagée au cours de sa journée investisseur. Et d'ailleurs, les actions acquises ont pour la plupart vocation à être annulées. Je crois que la 11e résolution se passe d'explications et je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Merci. Antoine.
Thank you, Antoine. I would like to say that a certain number of written questions have been asked before the Assembly, and we also have given the opportunity to the shareholders to ask questions by email until 10:30 this morning. The answers of the board have been posted on our internet site under the entry Finance General Assembly, and sometimes one single answer has been given to several questions pertaining to the same topic. Mr. Lucas, individual shareholder, has asked a question about artificial intelligence, which is a very important topic, very topical issue, and I think that I would like to give you the answer here rather than give you the answer in writing. So the Saint-Gobain Group enters the area of artificial intelligence in laboratories and in operational business, in industrial maintenance or industrial manufacturing. What are going to be on a long-term basis the impact on employment at Saint-Gobain? Of course, we have been working on artificial intelligence for years. 3 or 4 years ago, it was at the stage of ideation, of ideas, which were rolled out in the group. And then now we have an actual operational reality in the group. We are controlling a whole set of AI technologies, and we also have internal tools for cyber security and privacy of data. We have about 500 cases of use concerning AI in the group. There's cases concerning several countries. We are reorganizing our governance, AI governance, in order to make it a strategic issue. We have trained a little more than 16,000 employees on AI tools. A few examples, of course, because it pertains to all the company functions, for instance, formulation of materials, speed at which we can have a convergence on formulation. For instance, in construction chemicals, we need to have a specific application for concrete, sand, and admixtures. So we are able now to have a convergence on a certain number of samples much more quickly than before, and we can divide by 3 or 4 the convergence time compared to a few years ago. It is also true for material research and for a circular economy, because we can retrieve a lot of research that has been made over the past few years. It's true also for industrial research, and the Saint-Gobain Group has reorganized its database over the past year. So we are lucky because we have a lot of data concerning all our industrial processes. We have about 100 plasterboard plants generating a lot of data. So we have a lot of relevant tools, and we have organized those tools in order for them to be used by our employees. And this is an asset for industrial processes as far as AI is concerned. It concerns all the support functions, procurement, legal department, HR department, customers service, and also it concerns you, and point B, material trading. Now, if you have energy renovation projects, these are complicated projects, so it takes some time for a craftsman, and then this craftsman is going to talk with the customers at point B, and is going to help drafting a cost estimate. So thanks to AI, it is possible to do that very quickly, and it will save time for the sales representative in order to draft the cost estimate with customized solutions. So it's a good example concerning interaction with our customers. So artificial intelligence in a way to give support to our teams from an industrial research point of view, support point of view, commercial or business sales point of view. So it's an acceleration of the Saint-Gobain offering and growth strategy and efficiency strategy rather than searching for efficiency. And it's not about cutting jobs. It's part of our strategy, and I have given you a few examples concerning the whole of our Saint-Gobain chain of value, and our teams are very much committed to using AI everywhere in the world, not only in France, but as well as in the United States or elsewhere. Now, this was my answer to this question, which was asked in writing, but it could have been asked by you today. Now, what about the questions in the room? You have the floor. Please wait for the mic, and we can spend about 30 minutes to our exchanges. Question number 1. Patrick Yernen. I've been a shareholder for the past 6 years. 2 questions. The first question, Lead and Grow 5-year plan. Lead and Grow. The objective is 20% increase in sales or turnover in local currency. Between 24 and 25, there was no increase in sales. Same thing for first quarter 2026. It's even minus 2%. I think that there are some headwinds in the world. The Trump administration. In Europe, the European Parliament had voted in 2019 for a major Green Deal, so more than 100 billion euros, and it's being in fact reduced. Same thing for the French government. Isn't it a mega trend here that the government and the countries are over-indebted and they can't afford to have those major Green Deals anymore? So I think that you are ambitious for the 20% by 2030. Second question. Are you involved in the carbon capture in the plants, for instance, just as the Veolia Group is doing? Can you do that? Have you planned to do that? Thank you for this very relevant question. First question, 20%. 20% is concerns the renewal of our sales. So we want to continue to make disposals and acquisitions. We have 50 billion in sales at present, so 10 billion in sales are going to be acquired or disposed of. It could be 7 billion or another figure. This is in order to compare that with what we have done through the past years, around 40%. Now, mid-single digit growth of between 4 and 5% per year of sales growth. So what do we want to acquire, and what would we want to disposals in each country. So we are ambitious as far as the continuation of the group growth. Now, the impact of exchange rates. The euro is a strong currency, and if we had published the group sales in dollars since 2022, then the growth would have been much higher. But we're very glad to have a strong euro. But let's not forget the exchange rate impact on our sales. So, indeed, you're right, the overall situation is not very good, but it does not pertain to, it does not impact on sustainable buildings. Those are the best buildings in Europe and elsewhere. Of course, the governments can make a stand about that, but I can tell you that in the United States, in the residential area, there are no insurance companies willing to insure you when a hailstorm has destroyed your roof if you have not used more sustainable materials to build your home. So there is an accelerating climate change, and you have 14 states in the United States having defined tax advantages for people having used, for instance, waterproofing materials for their buildings. So this is in order to fight against climate change. In the office building, for instance, in April last year, we had met the chairman of LEED, L-E-E-D, Leader in Energy and Environment, and he explained that in the United States, the office buildings is 25% higher value if it has a good energy performance label. So on the one hand, we have political statements, and on the other hand, you have the actual value, financial value of an office. You have the insurance companies which refuses to insure some buildings. In Europe, we had a lot of standards for the past 5 years, creating a lot of confusion and slowing down the implementation of those energy standards. In France, we had 16 definition of eligibility criteria to the renovation bonus over the past 5 years. And this has had a negative impact on renovation. But we have tax advantages, we have renovation bonuses, and there is a 30% difference between a good energy diagnosis and a poor energy diagnosis. And people are going to look into whether there is lead in the paint or whether there is a seismic or a flooding risk. So those are the facts, in spite of all the governmental statements or the simplification of standards on the European level. However, those renovated buildings are better buildings, bringing some benefits to our customers in energy efficiency and purchasing power. We had forgotten about the Ukraine war impact and the war in Iran. So electrification is not going to be all and end all. And even if we have a heat pump in schools, we had a heat wave last week in France, and this didn't change the fact that the schools were much too hot for the children. And you're right, the governments are over-indebted, the countries are over-indebted, and so insurance companies have to help us. So I think that fundamentally, Saint-Gobain proposal concerning sustainable building brings a lot of advantage and benefits to the customers, and it has an impact on the planet. So, CO2 capture, no, we're not involved in that, because we want to reduce our CO2 footprint rather than capture. And we've done that on a very high level, minus 35% since 2017. So you can see that this is due to the Saint-Gobain acquisition. So we make a lot of effort, we electrify our plants, we have built the first in the world, the first plasterboard plant in Norway, working with electricity. Even if we did nothing to reduce our CO2 footprint, our facilities do not emit enough CO2 that would make CO2 capture profitable and interesting, because we are not major emitters. Our plants are not major CO2 emitters, and it would not be possible to gather or to pool all those emissions and bury them in the North Sea. So we can reduce emissions in another way. The CO2 capture processes are very expensive. For instance, cement manufacturers are talking about projects costing 1.5 billion. So we do not spend as much to reduce our CO2 footprint, but we are very successful in doing that, and we want to make a lot of progress. And we want to bring a lot of sustainable building in the world. Good afternoon. I would like to congratulate you because we do not only restate figures. I think that those figures are figures, official figures, because companies restate figures a lot. And for instance, some companies have negative sales figures, and they restate the figures and they become positive. So you're not afraid of mentioning real figures without restating them. My question concerns what you have mentioned, digitalized buildings. First question. What sort of impact is going to have this digitalization? Because insects are going to be attracted by this digitalization, and they are going to enter your building and your apartment. Has Saint-Gobain developed some kind of system in order to prevent insects to come into the apartments? With AI, we can make extraordinary things. Now, in my house, when I grow vegetable, I know what happens with insects. So what are you going to do about that? Thank you for your first remark. Of course, we want to publish true figures. And concerning digitalized buildings, what is important is to keep in mind, and you can see that in urban planning, because Saint-Gobain does not only sell glazing or plasterboard, but sells a whole solution concerning a whole building in a city. So sustainable building is part and parcel of an ecosystem, and what is challenging is to bring together several players. We have vegetable islands in Paris, for instance, which are very important to lower the temperature. And this is why we have vegetalized roofs in the United States. They paint them in white. And it's very important to have waterproofed membranes in order to avoid flooding through the roof with a poor waterproofing process. So don't worry about the building being deteriorated, because we have taken that into account, particularly waterproofing. I'm not a specialist as far as insects are concerned, and when you switch off the light, you can repel insects, and also mosquito nets. In the United States, we sell mosquito nets with some adverse attractivity with glass fibers. I think it's the best response. Now, I'm not going to talk about biodiversity, but when there are more insects, there are more birds, and biodiversity is protected. So we are very glad to hear the birds sing in Paris. It was the case during COVID. And I think that it's a wider topic, urban planning. For instance, the Louvre Museum. In 2028, we are going to celebrate the 40 years of the Louvre pyramid, everything in mineral. You've probably been there, and if you wait for too long the time before you can enter, the temperature is very, very hot. So this has been designed 40 years ago. The Louvre yard is entirely mineralized, but we have to think about the temperature. And those are very significant and important topics in order to make cities more sustainable and cooler, in order to lower the temperatures and capture CO2. But I can't give you the perfect answer concerning the insect topic. What would happen if more roofs were vegetalized in our cities? I think that vegetalization in cities is a very important topic, and we know that in some cities green spaces are much wider than in Paris, much larger than in Paris. Third question?
My name is Jean-Daire. I'm an individual shareholder. First of all, thanks for the Wi-Fi. It's very practical. My MacBook is very happy about that. I have a question about the price per ton of CO2 that you re-invoice internally at 100 euros per ton. It's about 85 euro in the open market. Are you adding a margin to the price per ton? What's happening? Because the real value of the ton is less than what you're re-invoicing within the group. My second question concerns your compensation. I think 100% of the qualitative variable will be attributive, bearing in mind that there were a few accidents to staff. I have some difficulty understanding that you get 100% despite the fact there were accidents. My final question concerns your shareholders. Your biggest shareholder is the fund, the employees fund with 7.5%, BlackRock has 7%, nobody between 5 and 7%. Yet I see some individual shareholders, something like 8.5%. Air Liquide has a lot of individual shareholders and has decided to give its shareholders a fee or gift when they come to attend the AGM. Is that something that your board is looking at? Are you drawing inspiration from Air Liquide rather than gadgets or objects that actually consume CO2? Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Firstly, the ton of CO2 is something that we impose upon ourselves within the group. My predecessor launched it at 35 euro for investments, 50 euro for R&D, which is more long-term. We've gradually increased to the price of 100 and 200 euro per ton. This is not something we pay in cash outside of the group. This is the way we go about modeling and justifying our investments and our R&D. Let me give you an example. If you look at a glass oven, if you just look at the heat recovery system, your return on investment will be over a little over 10 years. You won't see too bad if your return on investment is 4 or 5 years. But if you grant 100 euros per ton, this is fictitious, but if in India or elsewhere the ton is 100 euros, it's 85 in Europe, then we apply that throughout the world. Then you see that our heat recovery system at 100 euro a ton, if I recover that and don't lose it, then I have a return on investment I'm prepared to go ahead with. This is by comparison with materials that are expensive. If you see that the carbonated materials that we burn to produce glass or whatever, but if I have decarbonated materials and I apply 200 euro a ton in 10 years' time, I would have to learn to make glass with the acid-like wool, which contains no carbon, by comparison with what we've been using historically. So it's that type of dynamics that enable us to progress. And irrespective of the market, you need quotas, or buy those quotas in the market. This is how we progress, especially when we look at our R&D projects or our investment projects. Your second question was on my compensation. First of all, you'll see it was 155% of a maximum out of a maximum of 170%. Now, I think it was financial performance was 95%, and that includes safety. At the time, we had a measurement called the frequency rate, TF2. We achieved our objective. However, there were serious accidents, and I felt that from my own point of view, and from the ExCo's point of view, who agreed with me, I felt that it was important symbolically, because that's not going to bring anybody back, unfortunately, but to receive no compensation whatsoever in respect of that criterion. So it's 155% out of a potential 170, because the safety issue, which is 50% of variable, was at my behest reduced to zero and approved by the ExCo. Your third question concerning the large shareholders. We're very happy to have our group savings scheme as main shareholder, and BlackRock. BlackRock isn't just a fund, BlackRock is a whole series of funds. Individual shareholders are important to us, and the proportion has increased. I think our individual shareholders will have appreciated the annual average increase of our dividend by 12% over the last 5 years. It's very important for us to continue to help increase the number of individual shareholders. So all sorts of events, your physical presence here today, individual shareholder meetings in Paris or in the provinces that Maud and I do with our investor relations teams. We also organize visits to facilities and production sites. You will receive something, maybe not a fee, but a gift that I hope you will appreciate when you leave, that I think is good. I hope that will give you abiding memories. And yes, we are very keen to continue to grow our number of individual shareholders. I believe it's 8%, much happier than when it was in 6.5 a few years back. So yes, we would like to have more individual shareholders. If I could just add a word, maybe I could ask you if you'd like to join the club of our shareholders, because this is where all this happens. This is where we have all sorts of dealings with individual shareholders. We're very happy to be in touch with you directly by means of this club. You'll find the inscription form on our website. I think there's a person here had a hand raised. Please go ahead. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Christophe Lefebvre-Moulin. I'm speaking as an individual shareholder. I have two questions. One technical question that I feel is important, and a more general nature. The latter concerns your results, which are at a historically high level, an EBITDA margin of 15.5%, an EBIT margin of 11.4%. Given the headwinds we face, particularly in construction chemicals, can we reach or even exceed these historically high levels? If we look at the advanced job indicators, we know that the price of chemicals has risen sharply over the first 4 months. There's downstream. The pass-on has only been in the region of 2%. My technical question is, EcoSem, of which we don't speak very often, is an important part of Saint-Gobain. EcoSem has 3 facilities in Dunkirk and and 1 in the Netherlands. Could you tell us a little bit more about them? EcoSem is an investment we made about 20 years ago. It's over 20 years ago. It's in decarbonated cement made from slag from our high furnaces. The clinker. This was an important issue 20 years ago. It's still an important issue today. And we have a minority stake in EcoSem. I think it's become increasingly important since Chryso joined the group, because Chryso has important admixtures for low carbon cement. We will of course continue to develop EcoSem with our major players in civil engineering. If I take Exegie concrete, this is EcoSem cement with Chryso admixtures, and that's been used in a number of the major construction projects in Paris. So yes, essentially, the same way Saint-Gobain owns Leka. Leka produces calcined clays, which are important factors of substitution in cement. Now, in our low-carbon cements, and this is an important aspect. It's become increasingly strategic and increasingly important as we increase our involvement in construction chemicals. So, thanks for your comments on our results. We always want to do more and better, and of course the strategy with Lead and Grow is 15 to 20%, as you heard. I think that's evidence of our ambition. Our goal for this year is to be over 15% EBITDA. We said at the start of the year that the weather in the USA, France and Germany had not been very conducive in January and February, but that things should pan out after that. I can't say much more at this point in time. I don't think it's the right place, but I'm confident about the fact that 2026 will be a good year for Saint-Gobain. I'm confident that, as we've shown in 2022, for instance, where there was a big increase in the cost of raw materials, we succeeded in increasing our raw materials by more than inflation. That's what we have decided to do. We have our people mobilized around that objective, and I expect that by the end of the first half year, that what we'll be doing with prices will materialize. I think with our roofing products, the past price increases in April, the whole series of things we've done, and of course our know-how and how we coordinate local purchasing, global measures that enable us in times of crisis to eke out opportunities, including in construction chemicals. We've outperformed our main competitors by 2 percentage points, almost 3 percentage points in the first quarter of this year. This is part and parcel of our system of seeking out solutions. I'm confident that in times of crises are also opportunities for us to outperform others, particularly in the financial field. The gentleman here with number 7, I think. Claude Arros. I have a question concerning the 40th anniversary of the privatization of Saint-Gobain. It was in 1986 that Saint-Gobain was privatized. Saint-Gobain had been nationalized in 1982. It was a huge popular success because 1.5 million people subscribed to Saint-Gobain shares. Last year, for the 360th anniversary of the group, you did not invite the individual shareholders to join the other stakeholders to participate in the festivities. This year, 2026, when we commemorate the 40th anniversary of the privatization of Saint-Gobain, that's my question. Have you any plans for a great big party that will bring together the people who placed their trust in you back in 1986? Those shareholders and their descendants, the individual shareholders who represent 8.5% of your share capital. Will they be acknowledged for their loyalty and their longevity? I believe they will buy more and more Saint-Gobain shares to reach by the end of your term of office, Mr. President, 2028. Hopefully they will reach 10% of the group's share capital. Amen. Thank you very much, and congratulations for your ambition and the objectives that you set us. It's true that I think people who subscribed to the shares when the group was privatized, I think they can boast I think almost 10% growth per annum on average over the last 40 years, which is very good. 360 years, yes, we did a trip around the world with our partners, and that was located in our large regions with major accounts, That said, we associated shareholders with a whole series of events in Paris, events that I took part in myself, that Maud took part in. We're doing everything we can to include our individual shareholders. But more specifically, I'm going to tell you what our share is. The gift for you is for a ticket to attend the waterworks event in the Château de Versailles, in the Galerie des Glaces. It's an invitation. Okay, it's an ephemeral event, but a very spectacular one. I hope you'll be able to attend. Hopefully on a day that won't be as warm as recent days, but hopefully you will remember that one of the first things that Saint-Gobain built was the mirror, the Gallery of Mirrors, the Galerie des Glaces. Now, you've given us until 2028 to reach 10% individual shareholders ownership of the share capital. I'll take you up on that. I don't have full control over the tax measures that will apply to you, or that will soon apply to you, and unfortunately this has adverse effects on individual shareholders in France. But we're doing a lot to solicit a new generation of shareholders in terms of the transmission of values. This is part and parcel of what we do as corporate officers. So thank you for your testimony, which I think should be a good example for younger people to encourage younger shareholders to become involved. I meet with students from business schools, and last year I was with one of these business schools, all sorts of students, to talk about Saint-Gobain's strategy. And I hope that they either join us or become shareholders. But we try to do quite a lot with younger people, because clearly it's young people who are the future of each of our countries. That's why we invest in education and youth, and including the future of our shareholders. So thank you for the challenge. We're not going to wait another 40 years to reach 10%. We will certainly improve, I think, the share price. It would be all too easy if we were to just reduce the share price. It would make it more affordable. Thank you for your support. Also, thank you for the great encouragement that you have given us. Thank you. We're here.
One question, number one here. Sir? Thank you. I had noted in your presentation concerning some product recycling, like flat glass, plasterboard. What you said, I've noted what you said, and you are also ambitious concerning construction chemicals, which has to guarantee a certain development in the group. My question is the following. What about the products that are going to result from that construction chemicals? Are they going to be recycled themselves? Very good question. Very relevant. Construction chemicals. Let's take the mixtures that we put into concrete. Now we can have a wall that is demolished, and then we are not going to find the original molecule concerning the waterproofing solutions. Yet we are working on this type of solution in order to recycle some membranes. But then there are a certain number of initiatives that are taken in construction chemicals. For instance, facade rendering, everything that is exterior insulation, glass grid, and facade rendering. And we want to be able to dismantle a facade and rather to crush everything and lose everything. We prefer to have surfaces that can be separated easily one from the other. If we want to recycle materials, we have to separate the flows in order to find pure materials quite rapidly. It's part and parcel of our project. We also have some work being done on green chemicals with polymers. And so, yes, construction chemicals is part and parcel of our work. Mortars, for instance, tiling, or we have cement there, and we substitute cement with alternative products in Indonesia. We have to replace 45% of concrete with flying ashes from palm trees. We have palm trees in Indonesia, as you know. and they are cut off furnishing for furnitures, and everything is not cut off. So we use palm tree ashes in order to decarbonize. So we have a lot of sustainability initiatives in construction chemicals and the formulation or the ability to recycle some materials, and this is important for this business line of the group to be involved in our efforts. Question number 5, Gérard Galère, individual shareholders. I have 2 questions concerning distribution or payout. Distribution. Your Point B brand used to be a leader a few years ago, and this distribution brand has been overtaken by other groups, for instance, in the UK. I can't remember the name of the UK group. And my second question, Eramet, the company Eramet, which manufactures materials with mining extraction. Are you interested in that company, which has a lot of difficulties right now? I am very confident in the leading position of Point B and CDO and Plateforme du Bâtiment, which are affiliated companies. We have more sales than number 2, and we are gaining market shares in France. The brand names, I'm not going to give you the brand names that you have mentioned, concern do-it-yourself, DIY. And you know that our customers are mainly craftsmen. So Point B, you have heard our distribution manager, and Point B is very much ahead of competitors concerning, for instance, connected software for swift cost estimate in order to support craftsmen and train the craftsmen. I know no other distributor in the world, whether it's in the UK or the US, which is able to draft cost estimate with AI. Point B is doing that. So sometimes, of course, there is some competition from craftsmen working in a shadow economy, and they come to Point B because they have the right products, the right services, and the right advice, particularly concerning energy performance in households. So at Point B, we continue to make a difference, and this is very much in line with our industrial business line. Saint-Gobain is leading a group concerning construction building in France in residential and non-residential markets. Now, concerning your second question, we have a very specific know-how in ceramics in order to help Eramet, for instance, for ceramic, in order to extract lithium. And brine evaporate for 18 months. So I know that I've had some problems, for instance, in Bolivia. I had the opportunity to talk last about that with the Eramet chairman last Tuesday. And we have a specific ceramic know-how, expertise, and we have a lot of industrial expertise. So the extraction of lithium with ceramic, I think, is part and parcel of our expertise. I don't really know much about the outlook for Eramet, but we can support them with outstanding and innovative solutions. Of course, they have to be able to implement those solutions in their operations. Thank you for your question. Question number 3, and then we will move over to the voting period. I am an individual shareholder. As far as I remember, we're talking about Saint-Gobain Pont-à-Mousson. What about Pont-à-Mousson? What is the lesson that we can draw from the past? Now, you're right. In 1970, Saint-Gobain was called Saint-Gobain Pont-à-Mousson when we had this merger with Pont-à-Mousson. We still have this logo, which is modernized by my predecessor. Pont-à-Mousson is a subsidiary of the group, and we have continued to invest in Pont-à-Mousson, mainly on the water market. We had a footprint in China, but not anymore. We have a footprint in Europe at present with a minor business line in Brazil, but the core business of Pont-à-Mousson is Europe, with several plants in France. Pont-à-Mousson is 4,000 employees, half of them in Pont-à-Mousson in France, and we continue to invest in this facility with a plant in Fougue. So this is a profitable business with electrical furnaces. So we have an electric furnace in Fougue in order to manufacture pipes, and also in a pipe plant in Santander in Spain. There are huge requirements and needs in the water market in Europe. Sometimes there are funding issues from the various governmental water agencies. You've heard about the water stress. Spain and Italy, in the other infrastructure plan, have invested a lot in pipes. So France has to do that as well, but we continue to invest and develop that business line with technological transitions concerning, for instance, the move over to electrical furnaces. Question number 7, and then question number 2. Jean-Richard, individual shareholders. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I would like to congratulate you as well. You are a very good manager. Now, of course, this is encouraged by the renovation business, which is becoming more and more significant. In my house, primary and secondary house, I have tried to change the glazing, and I was confronted to triple glazing, double glazing, and many sorts of double glazing. So it's difficult to choose. I had put the question a few years ago. You were still general manager at the time, you were not CEO, and you hadn't given me the right answer. Maybe your technical experts are going to give me the right answer. Now, maybe what you could do is to have a booklet where you could have a list of possible glazing with their advantages and drawbacks, and the price of these materials. I was a little bit angry because I had to trust the craftsman who did the job. I tried to choose myself, but I couldn't. I was not able to do that because I didn't have any knowledge about that. Now, I would like our communication team to take your address, your mail address, in order to give you the answer. We have done a lot of work over the past years in order to streamline and simplify this matter. Or you need one specific type of glazing, and you need one answer. Now we have the ECLAZ, ECLAZ range of glazing, and you have all the possible information about the ECLAZ glazing on the internet, and you will have the right answer. It's on the internet. Maybe the craftsman did not explain that to you. So this is the ECLAZ range. It's a modern glazing. It's a new, innovative glazing, which has been put on the market 5 years ago with luminous transition and a good thermal performance, whether in winter or in the summertime. Now we are going to take your details, and in order to be sure to give you the right answer this time. Now we are talking about electrification right now, but it's not electrification that is going to make it more comfortable to to read your newspaper by the window in the winter, or when there is a heat wave, to give you the opportunity to have a cooler house. Stephen Dennis, who is the shareholder or employee shareholder representative, has organized a material tech a few months ago with a glass window, low carbon window, and the craftsman told us, I have natural light, it's cool. So that was the return. It was last week, in fact, when a heat wave struck France, and so we had this meeting. So we have the necessary know-how, but it's true that we have progress to make as far as communication with craftsmen and with the individual customers is concerned. Thank you for your question. One last question, and then we are going to vote. Claude de la Côte, Saint-Gobain Pont-à-Mousson, retired from Saint-Gobain Pont-à-Mousson. Concerning the high furnaces, or producing high furnaces at Pont-à-Mousson, they are going to be replaced by an electrical furnace, which is a major investment, and the Pont-à-Mousson management, senior management, has said that the employees and retired employees should participate, should be involved in that investment. A social agreement has been imposed, which has a negative impact on employees and retired employees. Anyway, the pensions is quite close at Saint-Gobain, so for retired persons receiving a certain level of pension, having received a pension for the past 10 years, this is going to result in a smaller amount of pension. I don't think that it's a good idea, and is it a good social policy to have employees and retired employees involved in the industrial renovation and industrial policy of the group? Now, welcome to the Club des Actionnaires, including the ex-Saint-Gobain employees. I have answered this question. It has nothing to do with the Pont-à-Mousson investment project. I think that there has been a problem with communication with the pensioners. We have communicated with the employees, and this agreement has been validated by the CGT, that is to say the main trade union of the Saint-Gobain employees. You probably know the situation at Pont-à-Mousson. It incurred a loss, and it works in a very competitive environment. It's faced with confronted with Turkish and Chinese competitors. So I think that we have to rebound at Pont-à-Mousson. It's our duty, and we did that with in cooperation with the majority trade union, the CGT. So we have asked for the employees' efforts, for the employees to join us in our efforts in order to rally the Pont-à-Mousson company. And there were some anomalies at Pont-à-Mousson, number of hours worked compared to the average number of hours worked at Saint-Gobain. Also, they had at Saint-Gobain 6 additional leave days compared to the average vacation days in the group. So if we want to be successful in the 21st century, we have to work more, not less. And also, there is a death insurance which is given to all our employees. And when you are retired, It's true that as far as life expectancy is concerned, you are getting closer to death, so you are not going to pay this death insurance to the pensioners. We had annual bonuses for all the Pont-à-Mousson retirees or pensioners. I don't think it's very interesting for everybody to go into all the details, but we decided that we had to look into the future and that it was normal to have the Pont-à-Mousson benefits at the level of the benefits given to the other employees in the Saint-Gobain group. Shifted work was 28 hours, and now it has been increased to 32 hours at Saint-Gobain Pont-à-Mousson. So we have made all those decisions in order to increase the Pont-à-Mousson profitability. It has already been improved during the past 2 years. I think that it's quite normal, and the Saint-Gobain group is quite exemplary as far as those topics are concerned, whether it's for the employees or whether it's for the pensioners, the retired employees. And the Pont-à-Mousson subsidiary is not the most profitable subsidiary of the group in France as well as in the group. But I recognize that we have not been very good as far as the communication is concerned, but the general manager of Pont-à-Mousson has given the necessary explanations about that. One last question. Now, you have mentioned Fug, the Fug location, and it's very interesting for me. Now, what about smelting, decorative smelting? I think that you have also taken back the market of adduction smelting. Now, this is smelting for water supply. So you are talking about pipes for water supply and sanitation. Thank you for your answer. Yes, you're right. Thank you very much for all your questions. Very relevant and interesting questions.
Okay, now I propose to move on to the vote on the resolutions. I can now give you the final number of shares present. 74.81% of shares present voting, as a result of which our quorum has been more than reached. But before voting on the resolutions, we're going to hear about how to vote. This is in the form of a short video.
Donc vous l'avez compris, le vote est effectué résolution par résolution après la lecture du résumé de la résolution qui apparaîtra à l'écran. Première résolution, approbation des comptes et affectation du résultat.
Le vote est ouvert. Le vote est clos.
La résolution est adoptée à 99,58%. Deuxième résolution, approbation des comptes et affectation du résultat.
Le vote est ouvert. Le vote est clos.
Cette résolution est adoptée à 99,6%.
Approved by 99.6%.
Troisième résolution.
Third resolution,
Et affectation du résultat.
approval of the accounts and appropriation of earnings and determination of setting of the dividend. Voting underway.
Le vote est clos.
Voting is over, and the third resolution has been approved by 99.79%.
Quatrième résolution.
Fourth resolution
Convention réglementaire.
concerns related party agreements. Please vote now.
Le vote est clos.
Voting is now over, and the resolution has been approved by 99.7%. Fifth resolution
Approbation des éléments de rémunération versés au cours de l'exercice
is
2025 ou attribués
the sale and pay ex post of Chairman and CEO Benoit Bazin. Voting underway. It's the sixth resolution, by the way, not the fifth.
Le vote est clos.
The voting is over,
La résolution est adoptée.
and the resolution has been approved by 90.31%.
Septième résolution.
The seventh resolution
Du rapport sur la rémunération des mandataires sociaux.
presents the report on the compensation of corporate officers. Voting underway.
Le vote est clos.
Voting is over,
La résolution est
and the resolution has been approved by 93.27%.
Huitième résolution.
Eighth resolution, that's the sale and pay ex ante concerning the compensation of Chairman and CEO Benoit Bazin. Voting underway.
Le vote est clos.
Voting is over,
La résolution est adoptée.
and the resolution has been approved by 89.59%.
Neuvième résolution. CNP ex ante.
This is the ninth resolution, the sale and pay ex ante concerning corporate officers or executive directors. Voting underway.
Le vote est clos.
Voting is now over, and the resolution has been approved by 99.5%.
Dixième résolution.
Tenth resolution asks you to approve trading in the company shares. That's the share buyback plan. Voting underway.
Le vote est clos.
Onzième
Voting is
résolution.
over,
La résolution est adoptée à
and the resolution has been approved by 99.39%.
On va revenir en arrière à la slide
Now, we're going to come back to slide number 5. That's the fifth resolution, which I think we skipped.
du renouvellement du mandat d'administration.
This concerns
de la porte sur lequel je
the Chairman of Officer Thierry de Laporte, which we are asking you to renew as fifth resolution, and we apologize for this little slip-up. Voting is now underway on resolution number 5.
Le vote est clos.
Voting is over.
Thierry de la
Thierry de Laporte sees his term of office renewed by a majority of 93.48%. Congratulations, Thierry. And thank you for your support and your high standards as chairman of your committee. The final resolution. No, we didn't vote it. The 11th resolution. The 11th resolution concerns powers for formalities.
Le vote est ouvert.
Files to carry out the decisions. Voting underway.
Le vote est clos.
The voting is now over,
Il est rassuré que cette résolution
and we are reassured that resolution has been approved by 99.84%. As we have now completed today's agenda, I now declare today's meeting closed at 5:51 p.m. Look forward to seeing you next January, and in the meantime that we convene for a drink together. If you would hand back the voting devices to those guests as you leave the room, that will be the opportunity to receive the gift that I told you about. Thank you. Wish you all a pleasant evening.